Tansei, I'm Nisichawayasihk Cree. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. The Ontario Provincial Police are investigating a recent death in a First Nation in northwestern Ontario. According to the OPP, last Thursday, just after midnight, police were called to an area on Makwa Road in Lac Seul First Nation. When they arrived, they found one person deceased. Police have since deemed the death as suspicious. The OPP have not provided a name, age, or sex of the person, but did say a post-mortem examination will be conducted in Toronto. The investigation continues this week. If anyone has information on this death, you are asked to contact the OPP. Lac Seul First Nation is located 56 kilometers northeast of Dryden, Ontario. For the second time in less than a month, the Nisichawayasihk Cree Nation in northern Manitoba has been evacuated due to wildfires in the area. A precautionary evacuation for about 300 high-priority community members was issued on Saturday. Then, a full evacuation order was issued on Sunday after air quality got worse and the possibility that wildfires could close Highway 391, the only road in and out of Nisichawayasihk to Thompson, Manitoba. As of Monday, more than 3,000 people are now evacuating, with many having to stay at the RBC Convention Centre in Winnipeg. At least 2 wildfires are burning north of Nisichawayasihk, with one of those fires now 46,000 hectares in size. In a statement, Nisichawayasihk Chief Angela Lavasser said, "As we continue this evacuation together, we ask every parent, grandparent, guardian, and caregiver to please keep a close eye on your children." Nisichawayasihk, also known as Nelson House, is located about 660 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg. Last week, Virtual Health Hub and Can Health Network announced a partnership to bring healthcare to northern Saskatchewan using Canadian-made technology. The new technology aims to bridge the gap in access to healthcare in the north. APTN video journalist Rachel May has more.
There'll be opportunities now for the medical professionals, doctors, nurses, lab techs, and so on and so forth, to be able to help with prognoses and to help address some of the health care from even the remote areas of our province.
Secretary of State for Rural Development Buckley Belanger says new technology coming to northern Saskatchewan will give residents access to health care in their own communities by helping health professionals reach communities they couldn't before.
So these are tools meant to assist them, and so they can make their prognosis and understand the patient's needs better, quicker. And that's the whole effort here.
Dr. Ivar Mendez is director of Virtual Health Hub, one of the companies using technology to bring the North and South closer together. He says medicine now offers better options for patients who can't see a doctor in person.
AI, robotics, improving telecommunications, and the shift since the pandemic, both the provider and the patient, that virtual care is a way of delivering healthcare.
Currently, the Virtual Health Hub operates out of Saskatoon, but through a partnership, a new virtual health center is set to open on Whitecap Dakota First Nation in February 2027, providing space for doctors, nurses, technologists, and more. Whitecap Chief Darcy Bear says the technology worked well when they put a virtual health hub in a long-term care home.
1 month they would have had 58 emergency room calls. They would have sent 58 of the residents to emergency room. But because of the having the remote health presence there and the doctor, the physician was available remotely to work with the nurses inside the Parkridge care home, only 8 people had to go to the emergency room.
Chief Bear says he's proud to be a part of the project and excited to see its continued growth.
This is not just about just Saskatchewan working in isolation. We're working with the world and bringing that better health care to Saskatchewan, to all of our citizens, and again, eventually this going global to all Canadians.
Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
The Nisichawayasihk First Nation and the Yukon government have signed an agreement that will see the two parties create a land use plan for around 7% of the territory. This plan is a shared blueprint for how land in a region is managed and used, helping reduce or avoid conflict between different interests. The plan will reflect the rights and responsibilities of Nisichawayasihk and support sustainable development. The proposed planning region's boundaries fall entirely within the First Nation's traditional territory, covering 35,000 kilometers. The MOU marks the fourth land use plan to be initiated under Chapter 11 of the territory's umbrella final agreement. The Mohawk Council of Nisichawayasihk general election was postponed this weekend. The community was notified the day before the election was set to take place, generating some negative reactions online. Under their custom electoral code, the current council mandates have been extended for up to another 6 months. Graham Drew is the chief electoral officer for the election. He told APTN News the period to carry out a rescheduled election can take up to 6 months. He says this process will include inviting community members to give feedback on flaws with the current electoral code. Drew says the decision to postpone the election came from multiple issues contributing to what he called an unworkable election. One of the issues was that 3 candidates running for office had criminal records.
I received 19 affidavits at the time of deadline, and I reviewed those. And 3 of the nominees, the applicants, had prior criminal convictions according to court records. And so it appeared that they had falsified their information on the nomination form, because I state very specifically, like we literally copy and paste the eligibility criteria from the code into the nomination forms. In this case, there was 3 individuals that it turned out they said that they didn't have any prior criminal records.
A chief, an elder, and a First Nation artist in BC have all been recognized with the province of BC's highest honor. We'll tell you who when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. British Columbia is recognizing 3 Indigenous leaders this week among the 15 people who have been appointed to the Order of BC. The 3 include West Bank First Nation Chief Robert Louis, who has been a long-time leader in First Nation self-governance for almost 4 decades. Stan Bevan from Terrence, BC, a Tatlin Tlingit artist and a leader in Indigenous culture who has made West Coast carvings for more than 40 years. And Elder Gwen Harry, a residential school survivor and a leader in education from the Squamish Nation. The order was established in 1989 and recognizes people who have made extraordinary contributions to BC, and it is considered the highest form of recognition from the province. The 15 people will be inducted into the order at a ceremony in Victoria in September. Congratulations to all the recipients. A First Nation in Northern Alberta is celebrating after it recently opened its new multi-million-dollar community centre. Fort McMurray 468 First Nation recently held a grand opening ceremony for its $30 million Niganon Community Centre. The facility, which opened in early July, has various spaces for elders and youth, a gymnasium with an indoor court, and a commercial kitchen. Local leadership says they will use the building for various community events like meetings and recreation, and they hope the building will be the beginning of many more construction projects in the First Nation. Niganon means our place in the Cree language, and the building was funded entirely by the Fort McMurray 468 First Nation. The facility is located about 30 kilometers south of the city of Fort McMurray. Moving to the East Coast, in downtown Halifax, the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Centre held a sprouting ceremony to mark the beginning of construction of the centre's future home. As APTN's Angel Moore reports, it's been a years-long wait for a much-needed building.
This is a sprouting ceremony at the location of the new Wujaywiyan Center, a birch and ash tree already planted to symbolize the roots of trees holding people together at the future home of the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center. Wujaywiyan means come with us in Mi'kmaq. Ardina Paul attended the event. She is from the Buckingag Mi'kmaq Nation. She moved to Jabukduk about 9 years ago and has seen firsthand the center's need for a new home.
Whereas all the other previous buildings were spaces already existing that were made to fit, or made to work. It was always a compromise, and now it's no longer going to be. It's going to be truly reflective of Mi'kmaq culture. And
the current location was moved into an old call center after the original building was falling apart and was in disrepair. Wujaywiyan Executive Director Pam Glow-DeRoche is looking forward to the new building.
The reality is we're in a space right now that is not fit for us. It's working, and we're thankful for it, but this actually means that we will have our own space, that we see ourselves in it, and it belongs to us, and it's going to work for us. And it's going to not just work for my own community, but the broader community as well.
About 60 community members, politicians, and delegates attended the sprouting ceremony, including Assembly of First Nations Regional Chief Andrea Paul. She says Wujaywiyan supports people on and off reserve.
And also to know that when I have someone from, a community that is in need of help, they're there. You make that connection with the Friendship Center, and they just all kind of gather together and figure all that out. But they also come into community to do support too. And so they keep that connection going.
The 10,000 square meter center will include a health center, education department, birthing unit, and an outdoor gathering space for ceremony, providing over 70 programs to over 8,000 Indigenous people.
You get to come in and sit down and have tea if you want with an elder, and it's just that it's a real community. So it's seen differently by different people, but I would say the Friendship Center has been doing reconciliation work long before the TRC, and we'll continue to do that work, and we'll continue to do it in a really good way.
The Indigenous-led cultural and community hub is designed by and for the community. Ardina says is needed after receiving support as a university student 9 years ago. Today, she is still part of the community.
I think the impact on having a new building, it's not only a space for the Indigenous community of Halifax to gather, it will be not just a building, but somewhere that you can see yourself in.
The Wujaywiyan Center is estimated to cost over $68 million, but $15 million still needs to be fundraised. It is expected to open in the summer of 2027. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Kjipuktuk, also known as Halifax.
Now to a story in the U.S. A 6-year-old boy is speaking out after his scary encounter with an octopus at an aquarium in Texas.
Felt like my mom and the octopus were playing tug-of-war with my arm.
Leo Taryn recently went to the aquarium where a giant Pacific octopus lives in a touch tank. And when he touched it, the octopus's tentacles suddenly wrapped tightly around his arm. His mom struggled to pull her son's arm away, but it took 3 employees around 5 minutes to pry it off of the boy. The sea creature left numerous suction cup marks on his arm. The aquarium has not commented on the incident. Leo's mother, Brittany Taryn, has since called for the aquarium to take more responsibility and says an octopus shouldn't be inside a touch tank with unsupervised staff. We now want to give you the results of last week's web poll questions. Last week, our first question was, has Indigenous Services Canada become too narrow in its interpretation of Jordan's principle? 51% said yes, 33% said no, and 16% were unsure. Our second question was, do you think Canada is truly making progress on reconciliation? 43% said yes, 42% said no, and 15% were unsure. And our last question was, Prime Minister Mark Carney has now been in office for 3 months. Do you approve of the job he is doing so far? 30% said yes, 43% said no, and 27% were unsure. Thank you for taking the time to cast your vote. Check out our website at aptnnews.ca to see our new poll questions this week to have your say. Singer-songwriter and First Nation artist Francis Baptiste from Osoyoos Indian Band in BC is up next. Stay with us. Miigwech for staying with us. St. John's 21 and sunny there, Charlottetown 22. 15 in Cartwright, Happy Valley Goose Bay 20. St. Jovite 20, Quebec City 20 and sun. Toronto 25, Windsor, smoky and 24. Sioux Lookout, smoky there at 21, Big Trout Lake 16. 24 in Thompson, Churchill, partly cloudy and 23. Sunny in Winnipeg at 22, Gimli 21. 19 in Regina and rain there, smoky and Swift Current at 17. 20 in La Ronge and sunny there, smoky in Uranium City at 16. Sun in Fort McMurray at 30, high level 25. Sun's out in Lethbridge and 28, Medicine Hat 29. 16 in Tofino, Penticton 22. 18 in Prince George and rain there, Prince Rupert 13. 24 in Whitehorse and sunny there, Mayo 20. 26 in Fort Simpson, Yellowknife, sun and 17. Sax Harbor, rain in 2, Paulatuck 7 and sunny there. Chesterfield 23, Baker Lake 14. And Agulik 3, Arctic Bay 2. Born and raised on the Osoyoos Indian Band Reservation in British Columbia, Francis Baptiste has spent the last 20 years in East Vancouver, where he has lived experience of addiction, fatherhood, poverty, and healing have become the raw material for his music. The singer-songwriter is out with a new song ahead of the release of a new album this fall. Here to talk about it all is Francis Baptiste with our Dennis Ward.
Francis, thanks for joining us and congrats on the recent single. Can you tell us about the inspiration for Aspirin for the Soul?
Yeah, for me, it's a song about addiction and addiction recovery and redemption. You know, I've been an addict my entire life, and I'm 41 years old now, and I feel like I'm finally, for the first time since I was a teenager, kind of getting a handle on my addictions and starting to kind of understand the work that it takes, that recovery takes. And that's what the song's about. The song's about growing up in a place and in a time where the only way anyone really taught me how to deal with my traumas was through substances and through alcohol. And growing up and realizing like there's got to be a better way to deal with your emotions and to deal with the hardships you go through. And you have to kind of rewire your brain to figure out like a proper way to cope with these things without turning to numbing your feelings or your mind.
You're very upfront with those struggles. How have they fed into the music that you make?
I try to be as honest as possible, like partly because I think powerful music is really about sharing experiences, and it's the only way that anyone's truly going to connect with anything I create is if I allow myself to be vulnerable and open myself up for my own true experiences. And hopefully somebody else out there who's struggling with addiction or struggling with being a single father or living under the poverty line, or even just another struggling musician, hopefully someone will hear these lyrics and these messages or just hear my story and relate to it. And even if you can't relate to it, the whole point of art is to kind of like allow people into your world in hopes of building bridges and building understandings between different groups. And that's a big part of the problem with where I come from. Like I've lived the last 20 years in East Vancouver, and I work in the downtown East Side for an organization called the Dudes Club, which helps older Indigenous men who are living in SROs in downtown East Side. But part of the biggest problems over there is a lack of understanding between the city and the downtown East Side, because there's an empathy gap when you have no common ground. But art has a unique opportunity to bridge that gap by people can listen to the song or listen to this album and maybe gain a bit of understanding of what it's like to live the life of an addict, the life of somebody on the downtown East Side.
Do you get a lot of feedback from those in the struggle or who've come through it?
Yeah, a lot of positive feedback. People are always happy to see kind of themselves represented in things. And I think, especially when it comes to addiction, it's all about battling stigma. And you can feel so alone. Like addiction isolates you because it kind of thrives in secrecy. You're hiding your behavior, you're hiding your use, And all of that leads to ultimately like closing off the rest of the world from yourself. And so addicts tend to feel very alone and very kind of estranged from their families, from their friends. And so when they hear a song that they can relate to, it kind of makes them feel a little less alone. And I've had a number of people come up to me and say like they're really grateful for me being so forthright in interviews and in songs and, you know, in my presence online.
For sure. Well, speaking of representation as well as your presence online, can you talk a bit about the importance of incorporating your language into what you do?
Yeah, it's been a really important step for me, especially like I started my solo career in 2021 with my first album, Nisichawayasihk, which means family, and my indigenous language, which is Nisichawayasihk, the language of the Syilx people in the South Okanagan Valley. I'm from the Osage Indian Band, and I found that when I turned 20 and I moved away, I went to college, there was a good decade and a half where I kind of felt urbanized and I felt estranged from my community. I went off to go to school. I met a white woman, got married, had a kid, and then kind of felt like being away from the res for that long, you lose a bit of your nativeness, you know, your resness. And then it was after my separation, after I started this solo career, this music solo career, that I found myself soul searching and wanting to reconnect with my family back home, reconnect with my cousins and the bros and everybody on the Osage Indian Band. And around the same time, my grandmother died, and she was the last fully fluent speaker in my immediate family. And it became suddenly like really real how close we are to losing our language and how endangered that language has become. So it was around then that I thought it was important for me to start learning it, to start teaching it to my son. And the easiest way for me to do that was to start writing songs in the language and incorporating that vocabulary into the songs I was writing.
Good stuff there, Francis. Yeah, just briefly here, you have a new album out this October titled Lived Experience in East Vancouver, which kind of is self-explanatory, I guess, but what can listeners expect?
It's a very honest and forthright kind of recounting of my experiences through addiction in the last 10 years. And it was, for me, like, I came to a point where I realized if I'm going to move forward in any aspect of my life, whether it's with my family or with my partner or as a musician, that I needed to stop what I was doing and really just like face my addictions head on and really kind of deal with it. And this album is kind of me trying to put it to bed and trying to say, like, this chapter of my life, this kind of dark chapter of my life, like the deepest depths of my addiction, I'm trying to close a book on it and retrospectively reflect on it, and hopefully the lessons I've learned in that process, other people can learn from them too.
Francis, great to speak with you. Congrats on the new single, the album, and a new chapter in your life as well. Thanks for taking some time for us.
Thank you so much.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Tuesday. Sav Jones will be here in a few hours for your evening newscast. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho kwana. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again. Ekse.